All right, so today we're gonna do a react to Skyebrows Redarked. Originally, I was just gonna do this on live stream and then upload the recording, but and have it be like a stream of consciousness thing. But then I actually found out about the background context of this song, and I decided it merited a little bit more thought than just stream of consciousness, which I thought the stream of consciousness thing last time went well. It's just because of the nature of this particular song, I thought it warranted a little bit of extra care. Um, so I have a shit ton of notes to the side that I'm going to read while we go through this. Um, Let me pull those up. Okay, and what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So in fairness, I was told that this wasn't supposed to be as deep as the other song. Now I'll let you be the judge of that, because I think even when because I think songs carry meaning outside of the context of what the author wrote. You know, as someone who's written some things themselves, like the meaning of what I write isn't determined by like what I mean it to mean. It's determined by what I actually put down on paper. But that's just me. That's just my approach to doing things. Uh, So I wanted to do a line by line analysis of this. I'm going to be perfectly frank. Beautiful song. I knew there was something more to it when I first heard it, and when I looked at the lyrics, everything kind of like fit together. But I guess without ado, I'm not going to be as focused on naming out all the cameos unless they're symbolically important. So, because again, I want to cut to the meaning of the song. So, I guess let's get started. Now I'm going to stop this just because before we get into this, liminality is definitely going to be a key motif in this song, and you're going to see this from the setting, the lyrics, and again, this is why all the VTuber cameos actually make a lot of sense for this particular song, because VTubers exist in a state of liminality. They're kind of like modern day professional wrestlers. They have a online persona and a real personality, and the two bleed into each other. And it's the liminal space in between fiction and reality that actually makes them fun. Uh, but I just wanted to point that out. That way, we can keep a tight shift. So our first area of liminality is actually going to be the fact that most of this takes place in the sky, in the atmosphere specifically, which is a liminal area between space and heaven, and the ground. You'll also see that there's a common motif of these little papers right here, which are all empty. So the thing about empty papers is that they represent the undeveloped potential. They are a space defined by absence for something to fill, and that's another thing we'll find as we go through this. There's another liminal space that we have here with Filian in between, as a VTuber, existing between the digital and the material. Actually, hold on. I don't know if this is I don't know if this is important, but yeah, you have the rainbow in the background. There's an almost halo effect. Uh, it's interesting that it's a rainbow, which in the Western culture represents God's promise to mankind not to destroy the world with with a flood again. This is JD Vance, obviously. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here. This opening immediately frames the song with water symbolism. So, in order to prepare us for the fact that this poem, because that's what the song is, it's effectively a poem, is centered on liminality. So, in the song, you can see that like no line ends with a sharp closure, and the lines trail off, and like that's because we're exploring disillusion. Also, the propaganda monster here is pretty sweet. Uh, it's Asmongold. So there's obviously a social and political commentary here with, the Lolita Express fucking popping up here. But lyrically speaking, not divorcing it from the obvious political jab being made here. Um, a spark unclaimed and unrequited lust. So a spark unclaimed is unrecognized potential, and an unrequited lust is desire without recognition. It's like a letter left unopened, a message left on unread, or a dream not recognized. Foggy glass, my fractured thoughts dissolve. So, this to me stands for heavy crying, where sight moves from clarity into murkiness. The use of the word fractured relates to the imagery of glass, which is, a stand in for vision in this particular scene. But here it expresses the experience of loss. Discursive reason breaks like glass, and articulate syllogisms dissolve into pain, sadness, affect, and raw phenomenology. Um, this is a devastating experience which is being framed from a distance, not out of safety, but out of perspective. It's a reflection of experience after the fact. A flicker lost, a secret unresolved. So, this conjures up the image of a small but bright light, jittering and then fading out, a flicker lost. It's a metaphor for a life cut short, and the latter half, a secret unresolved, uh, obviously refers to those things which you wanted to say, which now never get to be said, at least to the one whom you needed to say them to. So this is like obviously like a phone number. This is the experience of like a phone that will never, number that will never pick up again, an address that will never respond, a buddy who will never log in again. You know, things that you should have done that now you never can. So I drift, I fade. I drift, I fall, I fade, I call. Drift, fall, fade, call are the important words in here, and obviously the I. The I is the unified center of subjectivity, the one doing these things. But drifting communicates a loss of direction. It also communicates a sort of weightlessness. Stones don't exactly drift, right? Feathers may drift. Uh, then fall communicates descent, a pull towards gravity, a weight. So there's a tension between these two descriptions. I fade. To fade implies some degree of erasure, be it perceptual or substantial. Disappearing. Uh, I call. This implies a desire for when you call, you obviously do so with an intent. To call out to someone, you are anticipating or desiring someone to make a response. It's an outward motion. So there is a directionality in both of the last words of these two lines. Fall is downwards, call is outwards, and there is a sense of, if you will, insubstantiality in the first half of both. Drift, there's a weightlessness, and then fade, there is a loss of substantiality.
In trails of smoke, I slip from light to shaded.
And this is the thing that actually made me think that, again, the sky itself was liminal, the atmosphere, because it's in between. It's literally in between worlds that we can explore. But that being said, um, in trails of smoke, I slip from light to shade. This is formless buoyancy, where one gently passes out of an external source of light and behind something which deprives you of said light. It's not that the light is gone, but rather that there's something has made the light gently inaccessible to you. And where obviously where there's smoke, there's fire. This is our first sign that the flicker that was lost earlier in the song still endures, though we've lost sight of it.
A breath unseen, a ghost that night has made it.
That so let's get back to the lyrics for a moment. So a breath unseen, a ghost that night has made. So breath itself is life. To live is to breathe, and to breathe unseen is a breath unseen is therefore a life unwitnessed in a sense. Um, Ghost and night are doing a lot of lifting here. So a ghost in modern English is a disembodied vital principle. You know, the ghost is technically that thing which makes a body alive. A ghost and a soul are actually synonyms. It's only in modern English where the two have slightly different meanings. Um, and night, in this sense, is a obviously representative of time. In a sense, night becomes an avatar of time itself, which Krishna tells us in the Gita is the destroyer of all things, that which consumes all. Time has deprived the body of its vital principle, but the ghost persists through memory in those left behind. So what was once a body soul composite is now a soul deprived of their body, which is a cosmic tragedy. So ghosts have obviously different meanings depending on the cultural context, but they're associated with unfinished business, not necessarily their own, as with ghosts in purgatory, but they can also be associated with unfinished business for people that are left behind. So not of the ghost, but of the person left behind. You can think of that as, like, for example, dream visions uh, of those in mourning, telling them not to worry about them. And yeah, it's a fairly poignant placement for Illy the kitty. I did not know about her until this song, and I'm not gonna lie, the finding out about this kind of broke my heart when I found out about it.
Through hollowed halls, the echoes twist and stall.
So, through hollowed halls, the echoes twist and stall. This creates an image of this. Obviously, we saw it earlier, but this is an image that is by definition defined by absence, hollowed halls. Uh, but now the emptiness isn't just in experience, it's architectural. So the absence now is, in a sense, the defining quality of the setting. And there's a coldness implied in the halls. So if we go back, an empty hallway,
Has made it.
you're not going to associate a hollowed hall with warmth. You're going to likely associate it with a sense of coldness. Um, because there's nothing there. There's nothing in there. The echoes are the replay of memories, changed by being informed by new emotions, new information, but they stall. They cease to progress. So we have again another lyrical tension. Twist implies change, and stall implies there is no more change, but in different respects here. A twist in the sense that, like, again, everything that you knew beforehand is now reinformed by something new. Grief, sadness, loss. The good times have more meaning now. But there's still that stall that there will never be more. And again, the use of hallway is useful here because hallways are themselves liminal spaces. They exist to facilitate passage from one area to another. You know, this is a metaphorical descent of the living who remember into Hades, the land of the dead, from which they must return to the land of the living. Not to sound like Carl Jung here. And actually, now that I'm looking at that, it almost looks like they smash into a bunker, to be perfectly honest. And then obviously we have this is our first repetition of the section, setting up an expectation to hear it again later as a stable constant in the song.
Are stark, move but leave no mark. A pulse that stirs then dims within the dark.
So I have this listed, like these two lines is listed together. Silences are stark, move but leave no mark, a pulse that stirs, then dims within the dark. Now let me go back just to make sure that I actually. Yeah, okay, so silences are plural in the subject. So silence itself is absence, a privation of sound, but it is the subject of the line, and it occurs in multiplicity as an actor. So silence is not silence. Uh, and as an actor, it is what moves and leaves no mark. So this incident is not just one act of silence; it is many acts of silence all at once. Incidentally, movement is synonymous with change in pre-Cartesian English. So, you know, uh, anyway, uh, the silence changes but leaves no mark. Um, the use of the word stark is interesting because stark carries even to this day an implication of immovability and unbendingness. So, in a sense, this silence is an unbuffered reality beyond any defense mechanism. Like there is no defense mechanism that your mind is going to conjure that is going to be able to actually protect you from this particular painful reality. Like there's no narrative explanation. There's no comfort. There's no padding. There's no goodbye. There's only a sudden absence.
A pulse that stirs then dims within the dark.
So this one again, the pulse and movement are signs of life. Uh, the word dim is actually kind of important here because it implies a gentle extinguishment. It reminds me actually of mono no aware, which is the Japanese word for the sorrow arising because things pass away. It's the emotion of sadness at the transience of things because they are transient, and it reminds me of a Latin line, uh, "Sunt lacrimae rerum et mentem mortalii." I butchered that last word. Uh, uh, yeah, rerum I think is the last line of that. I didn't actually write that part down. It means there are tears in things, and mortal matters touch the mind. So, you know, make of that what you will. It's a
In current soft I fold where shadows creep.
so in current soft I fold where shadows creep. We return to the water motif. I mean, technically it could be wind too, because wind currents, but it's symbolic of waters are symbolic of chaos, potentiality, the unconscious. Currents imply directionality, but unchosen directionality. So you're being pulled in a direction. I'm not entirely sure how to interpret the word fold in here. Like I fold where shadows creep. Fold can mean a few things, but here I get the image of like crumpling over and pulled inwards once again, as if weeping uncontrollably. Um, but in poker, the term means to give up, which is a real temptation when you lose someone that you love. Uh, then there's the context that it can also be used to indicate like a structural collapse. So, and that can happen. You know, when you lose someone who's precious to you. So, shadows are often associated with those things about us which we don't want to know or acknowledge, simply because we don't like that part of ourselves. So we push them into the back of our mind, into our subconscious. Shadows have also historically symbolized presence. You can tell a person is there even if you can't see them by their shadow. The Egyptian word for the shadow, shwut, also meant image or form. So there's that, and there's obviously the role shadows play in the allegory of the cave, where you don't see the thing itself, you only see its dim reflection on the wall. So, but here it very clearly carries a negative connotation. Uh, they creep is an categorically uncanny description. To creep is to move slowly and quietly, to remain concealed. So there's a sinister element to the shadows here. So you're not having a good time. You're still in the underworld.
I drift, I fall, I fade, I sleep.
So excellent place to put that. To be perfectly honest, completely knocked out. But yeah. So here we have a subtle inversion of the orientation. So the act of calling, as in the other uses of this particular verse, is directed outwards, but sleep is a turn inwards. It is sometimes used, obviously, as a euphemism for death, which the Greeks personified as, the Greeks personified sleep as hypnos, the brother of Thanatos, death. Um, it can be it can be read as either the decedent dissolving before passing away, or as the mourner going emotionally numb before they themselves inevitably must sleep. I fade, I sleep. And yeah, uh, I don't think I really have to explain this particular image.
A flicker, faint, a soundless, nameless fire.
So, a flicker, faint, a soundless, nameless fire. Again, silence makes a mark. Fire is neither named nor does it make a sound, and fire symbolizes passion, divinity, and love. So, which is again why we're going to start to see fire throughout this thing as an important visual motif. Um, Here, the flame does not die, but rather endures, quiet and without ego.
A moment held, a thread that won't expire.
So there's definitely something going on here. Um, a moment held, a thread that won't expire. Even though the moment passes, then ghosts leave bodies, there is a thread, ties that bind, which keep the dead alive analogically in the memories of those who love them, family, friends, in the case of a VTuber, fans. Um, and the interesting thing about threads per se is that they're weakest under slack and they're strongest when under tension. Um, But yeah, I also find this particular scene fairly interesting. Neuro has shown up a couple times in here, which makes sense because she's not just a VTuber, which we already discussed was the thing of liminality. But Neuro herself is a liminal being. She is a tool, that is true. She is just a GPT. But at the same time, her relationship with the people around her and her VTuber community is not that of a standard GPT. It's that of a friend. You know, she may not be a person, but she closely enough emulates one that she very well could be described as a legitimate friend to Videl and the people around him. And here we see the famous, an allusion to the famous scene where Neuro is given access to VR, and she tells Vidal that she wants to be real. So we have her little Pinocchio moment where she is rendered in a more realistic art style, representing the concretization of that dream that, Nero might one day be able to be made real, not just be a, what would you say, a reflection of a ghost in a machine. So, and then, hold on, obviously, turtles all the way down. Hold on. Yeah, yeah, it's turtles all the way down. And here we again have the fire motif, uh, representing a life, but and heat and warmth and love and passion. Uh, but let's look at this verse. As colors bleed, in quiet whispers crawl. Um, so this shows a loss of perceptual distinction. And in here we do see like the colors bleeding, obviously, past the outlines, which is acceptable for this particular scene because that's kind of the point. Um, when colors bleed, outlines are transgressed, boundaries are violated. Uh, where I end and you begin becomes muddled. Once again, the absence of sound, but with the quiet whisper scrolls, we have once again the absence of sound, but this time it's defined by degree and it's not absolute. Um, 'Cause, there is sound. There's just it's whispered, it's muted. There is an absence of degree here. Um, but most importantly, it's not the content of the whispers that are important, but rather how they move. They crawl, they remain close to the ground where we all must one day return. I want to go back here again because we return to that first repeating verse in the original form. And I find this kind of interesting because obviously we're not only returning to the original form of this particular verse, but remember what we mentioned earlier is that sleep is an inward turn and call is an outward turn. So the singer returns to reaching outwards after returning from his inward collapse. This is a hopeful way to end this particular song, uh, but it is an ambiguous one. I don't know if they're calling out to those who can reach into their sadness and help them back out, or if they're calling out to the ghost to tell them that they still live in them. I'm not entirely sure how to interpret the call in this one, but um, and let's go back a little bit. There is another function that fire historically has performed, and it's purifying. Uh, For example, what the only thing coming to mind right now is like the Zoroastrian use of fire to burn away things that would pollute the ground, the elements. But there's also, for example, in the book of Deuteronomy, which says the Lord your God is a consuming fire. Uh, you know, and the whole concept of purgatory being a fire that burns away the the chaff and refines the precious metals. And here we have the Iranian flag of the Ayatollah being burned away in a sense, like uh, almost a hope that Iran will be able to purify itself of the evil that this regime has done to it. So yeah, that was generally my analysis of the lyrics themselves, at least. So hold on, let's go back here. I don't remember what this guy's name is off the top of my head. Sorry about that, but I do know apparently he's out of the hospital. Thank God. Um, but yeah, so I find this. I think this is a very moving and fascinating work on its own. Again, uh, and I guess you know what? Fair enough. Uh, Vice President JD Vance. I'm just thinking right now. This guy is kind of in an in between state himself. He's not the president, but he's also not a regular pleb or anywhere else, and he's literally only exists to potentially move into the presidency if need be. So yeah, fair enough. The meme and the sense of, I guess, in betweenness fits here as well. Yeah, obviously there's the things that have happened since the last video, such as the uh the whole conflict with taking Maduro as quickly as we did. It's funny as shit. The propaganda machine fucking losing its mind over that. But yeah, so generally those were my thoughts on this particular thing. I think this is a very powerful song. Fucking wrecked me, to be perfectly honest. Because I myself know what it's like to lose someone. I'm not going to talk about it, but yeah, it definitely it hit me with a sense of verisimilitude. I'm just going to say that. To be perfectly honest, I don't know if this song is supposed to be from the perspective of the ghost or the survivor, but I would not be surprised if it was intentionally ambiguous to that. There were a couple things I did notice in the song, though. So the song makes heavy use of fricatives. Um, so that's the what would be like the f, and sh sound. Uh, and the reason it does is because these emphasize breath, friction, because they're fricatives, right? They are made by friction, which is a sense of erosion lost through time. Uh, and they give a bit of a whispering melancholy to the piece. We also see words like fade, shade, sleep, and other long vowels used in here, which is interesting because long vowels definitely they last for longer. So there's a sense by which because they take more time to articulate, they in a sense slow down the verse. And then in the speaking itself, the plosives are often muted. So there's a tendency to pick words where the p, t, and d sounds are more muted, which again softens the sound. Let's see this scene with Nero again.
In foggy glass, my fractured thoughts dissolve.
Yeah, again the scene of liminality, but it's where there's another example of liminality where Nero doesn't exactly exist fully in the digital space or fully in the real world, but she plays a role in between the two. So yeah, um, yeah. I don't really have anything more to say about this for the most part. Uh, Obviously, we have like Kirsha, Mizuki-chan, Smugalana appears multiple times in here. There's Kaya. Nuxtaku appears twice. I don't know what's going on with Fierce Nux, but I'm here for it. You have obviously there's no fucking Filian. I was about to say there's no fucking way I'm spacing on this. Uh, but yeah, I think the song is genius. And there's not really much to say about it. I wanted to do a mostly lyrical focus on this, to be perfectly honest. But I am standing by. I am standing by very strongly that the atmosphere, which most of the song takes place in, is supposed to be liminal between Earth and heaven. So, uh, I guess I will stop dragging on this analysis, uh, and I'm just gonna upload this because there's no real need for me to edit this. To be perfectly honest, uh, yeah, this song hit me in the feels. I'm not gonna lie. Godspeed to the family. If you want to, again, if you go to the Skyebrows channel, uh, and I'll put it in my video too, you can donate to the families here and here. Again, I'd never heard of this person before the song, and uh, this did break my heart finding out about this. So, you have a lovely day.